One of the girls asked how she was feeling. The girls all wanted to know what she was most afraid of. Haran paused for a moment and said what scared her the most was dying. Until the girls clarified they were talking about movies, so what was she even answering? Some time later it was time to run. Haran of his people were commenting about her, but she didn't want to give up on everything. Still, ever since the day she got that scar, she felt like terrifying waves of water were constantly closing in on her. When that feeling grew stronger, everything in front of her would turn white. That's why she didn't like running. Every time she ran, it reminded her of that day she tried to escape. When the boys were running casually, Haran passed them all, leaving everyone behind. But it only made her realize how much of a coward she was. The teacher announced it was a new record, and everyone was impressed. They congratulated her, saying they didn't know she had such talent. People crowded around, asking her name, and if she was an athlete. She said no, but the teacher chimed in, saying she had potential as a runner. As she started training, she'd soon be one of the best in the region. Haran tried to explain her fear of that memory, but she paused for a moment, clenched her fists and said, "Fine, I'll do it." Time passed, and she was now stacking up trophies. Someone commented that the girl who started just 2 years ago already held several records. An older man asked if the girl with the scar was there, and the teacher confirmed it. Opening the door, he saw Haran drying off after a game. He said she was the athlete of a moment and asked if he could take some photos with her. She agreed, and a bit later, he said he was a fan and asked her to smile. Then he moved closer, saying the photo wouldn't turn out well if she stayed so distant. But as soon as he touched her, she remembered the day of the attack. The man stood there, confused, trying to figure out what happened. In an instant, Haru had run to the corner. Later, the man said he felt weird about it. He didn't know the girl was so strange and claimed he hadn't done anything wrong. The teacher tried to explain that Haru was a bit strange, but asked the man to understand. He said she could be considered a bit of a coward, always running away from things. Haru was standing nearby and overheard the entire conversation. Back at home, her father was complaining about the internet not working. His wife told him it was because he needed to learn not to use his phone at the table. He apologized and asked Haru how the news report went yesterday. She stayed silent and he commented that he never imagined she had such talent. He was now excited to see his daughter on TV. But suddenly, Haru said it was all because of that accident. That was why she got so good at running. Her father didn't know what to say. She explained that every time she started running, she remembered that incident, which made her run faster. Ironically, that was the reason she started running the first place. She thought if she kept running, she eventually escaped the cowardly personality she had. But after all this time, nothing had changed. No one said anything at the table. She got ready and was about to leave for school. Her father stopped her and said she didn't need to fix anything. It was okay for her to be a coward. Haru wanted to respond but stayed silent. Deep down, she knew it wasn't okay for her to be like this. She constantly felt like people saw her as strange because of her personality. People would always judge her for running away from even the smallest things. Just like that reporter had said, there was clearly something wrong with her. She told her father it was okay, he didn't need to try to make her feel better. It didn't bother her that much anymore, but he hugged her. He said he wasn't trying to make her feel better. He was just telling the truth that it didn't matter if she was a coward. Nothing had changed before or after the accident. She was still his daughter and the person he loved most in the world. He gently brushed her bangs aside, exposing her forehead, and told her she didn't mean to hide it anymore. That scar was proof that she had fought and survived. Haru beat and crying, thinking people didn't like her because she was a coward. That was the only reason she tried so hard to change. But the world was a better place because despite everything, there were people who understood her. Her brother teased her, calling her a crybaby, but Haru was more focused on what her father had said, that there was nothing wrong with her. That it was okay for her to be a coward. Her father extended his pinky and told her a promise. that she wouldn't cry anymore every time she thought of herself as a coward. She hesitated for a moment but then smiled and said, "Okay." With that, her mother said she was taking her brother would be back soon. Haru and her father stayed behind, watching them leave, until the wall in front of them was destroyed. Before her father could react, a chunk of debris struck her mother in the head. Her brother was taken with her. The entire front of the house had collapsed. Creatures had begun roaming the area. Her father, desperate, ran to the rubble, searching for his wife's body. He paused for a moment as Haru called out to him, asking what happened and where her mother and brother were. But then she realized her father had also lost one in his legs. She ran to him what he told her not to come closer. Her mother's body was beneath the rubble. Haru didn't know how to react. She felt her knees, memories of her family, flashing through her mind as she spiraled into despair. Her father called out to her and told her she could still escape. He said he would stay behind with her mother and brother. But Haru said no. She begged him not to say such a thing because she couldn't leave him behind. He was the only person she had left. She didn't want to run away anymore because she'd never forgive herself if she did. In front of her father, a crowd of people was fleeing from the creatures. They glanced at the house as Haru stood up. She was about to tell her father she'd never run away again. My swarm of shadows closed in on him and rushed past her. Amid the chaos, she froze, watching as her father slowly turned toward her. He was enveloped in a glowing light and she could move forward. The shadows seemed to pull her back. She remembered her father once telling her it was okay to be a coward. That there was nothing wrong with her. So she ran thinking he was wrong. She abandoned him despite saying she wouldn't. And after that, she kept abandoning others. Back on the train, Juan watched the protagonist preparing himself. He looked back and saw Haru standing there. He remembered how isolated she had seen and chose to ignore it. He kept climbing and she stood frozen, paralyzed by fear. But then suddenly she moved. She ran past everyone on the stairs and stumbled in front of him. She was determined not to run away anymore. She said this time she was going with them. On top of one of the buildings was a monster doing push-ups. Or was that just an illusion? Meanwhile, the group sneaked through the buildings. Slowly, they advanced following the protagonist's signals. After some time, he turned around and told them they could talk there. It was safe. The woman immediately commented that she thought her heart was going to explode. The glass, as Guy said, he was certain that at this rate, they were all going to get eaten. He turned to Haru and asked how the map was coming along. At that moment, we flashed back to see the protagonist earlier handing her a piece of paper, explaining that they needed to make a map. He said it was just as important as finding food, because it was the only way to plan ahead for where resources were located. Since it was so important, Haru had been enthusiastic about the task, saying she handled it, especially because she knew the neighborhood well. Now, however, she admitted that while she was confident at first with the city so chaotic, her prior knowledge wasn't helping much. The streets that were once easy to navigate were now completely destroyed and nonsensical. They gathered everything they collected, but everyone felt that, after all that walking, they hadn't managed to get enough. Most of the food was already spoiled. It was summer, scorching hot, and the city had been without power for 9 days. The glasses guy pointed out that they all knew what they needed to do. They had to eat the food before it spoiled further. The woman disagreed, insisting they should take it back to the base and decide what to do there. But the glasses guy argued that it wouldn't be fair for them to eat only what was already spoiled. Besides, they were the ones who risked their lives coming here with monsters all around. He said it would actually be unfair, those who took the risk didn't get a reward. Still, the woman protested, saying the people at the base were waiting for them. Then they heard chewing noises. The protagonist was calmly eating, saying it was delicious. Of course, everyone immediately started eating too. The woman left with no other option, reluctantly joined in. The boy was happy. At the base, they only had bland nutritional food. At least this was tasty. Just eating it made him feel content. Haru then mentioned that she remembered the first time they met. They had eaten bread together.